Hi everybody, welcome back to Epic's YouTube channel. Before we get started reading chapters 4 and 5 today of our Unicorn Princess's Flash's Stash chapter book, I want you to try and recall the main characters of the story as well as the setting that the story takes place in. Chapter 4. Cressida sat on Flash's back and gripped the unicorn's shimmering silver mane. While Sunbeam's mane reminded Cressida of thin threads of yellow silk, Flash's mane seemed more like glittery strands of Christmas tree tinsel. Flash trotted out of the palace's front door, and as soon as her hooves hit the clear stones that led away from the spiral palace, she began to gallop. As Flash picked up speed, the wind riffled through Cressida's dark hair. Cressida guessed they were going faster than when she glided down a steep hill on her bike or rode a roller coaster at the state fair. "Want to go even faster?" asked Flash, sounding playful and daring. Cressida's eyes widened. How could Flash run any faster? "Is that possible?" she called out, laughing. "As you know, my magic power is to run so fast that my horn and hooves create lightning," Flash explained. "Despite what Sunbeam said, I never use my magic powers when I'm training for the Thunder Dash or in the race itself. But I don't see any harm in using it now just for fun. What do you think?" "I'm ready," Cressida said, tightening her grip on Flash's mane. And then suddenly, Flash surged forward, running so fast Cressida wondered if they were flying. Cressida squealed with delight as silver and gold lightning bolts crackled from Flash's horn and hooves. Now, Cressida was quite sure they were sprinting as fast as a cheetah. "Whee!" Cressida yelled as Flash sped along a thin, winding forest path. Squirrels and chipmunks stopped chasing each other and searching for nuts to stare at Flash and Cressida. Woodland fairies with silver wings called out, "Whoa!" and "Look at them go!" as they peered out from behind giant toadstools. 3 baby skunks sprinted alongside Flash and Cressida, trying to keep up, but they soon fell behind and collapsed on the forest floor, breathless and giggling. Soon, Flash and Cressida came to a long, straight stretch of the forest trail. "Are you ready?" Flash sang out. Before Cressida could ask, "For what?" Flash leaped into the air, soaring for several seconds before she landed and jumped again. "We're flying!" Cressida called out as even more lightning sizzled and sparked from Flash's horn and hooves. Just as Cressida began to feel dizzy and a little sick to her stomach, the trail narrowed and began to turn sharply. Flash slowed down, first to a slow gallop, then a trot, and then a fast walk. "Phew!" Flash exclaimed, breathless. "That was the most fun I've had in weeks." "Me too," said Cressida. "I love magic sprinting and leaping even more when you're riding with me," said Flash. "And guess what? We're almost to the Thunder Peaks, so close your eyes." Cressida shut her eyes and smiled, excited to see Flash's domain. After a few seconds, Flash said, "We're here." Cressida opened her eyes to behold a meadow with silvery green, gold, copper, and bronze grass, dotted with blue and purple wildflowers. Copper-colored rabbits with long ears hopped through the flowers and chewed on leaves. Golden orange fox cubs chased each other and tumbled through the grass. Red and bronze butterflies swooped and fluttered. Just behind the meadow towered 2 of the highest mountains Cressida had ever seen. Minty green pines, trees, ferns, and round metallic boulders covered both mountains. In the sunlight, the boulders glared so brightly Cressida squinted as her eyes adjusted to the light. "Well, what do you think?" Flash asked, kneeling down so Cressida could slide off her back. Cressida stepped into a patch of silvery green grass and stared at the meadow and the mountains. They were so stunning Cressida had trouble finding the right words. "Amazing," she finally said. 3 baby rabbits jumped over to Cressida and began to nibble the grass. Cressida kneeled down and held out her hand to them. She expected the rabbits to run away, but instead they hopped closer to her. Cressida scooped one up in her arms, and he nuzzled against her chest and closed his eyes. Flash glanced at the baby rabbit and smiled. Then she pointed her horn toward one of the Thunder Peaks. "See that path that goes straight up the mountain?" Flash asked. Cressida looked into the distance as she stroked the baby rabbit's head. She saw a long, bright pink line that started at the base of the mountain and ended at the gold-capped top. "That's the race course we use for the Thunder Dash." "What makes it so pink?" asked Cressida. It was even pinker, Cressida decided, than her favorite pink unicorn raincoat. "Pink? It's not Flash began. but her voice trailed off when she lifted her head to look more closely at the mountain. "That's really odd," Flash said slowly. "The path is paved with crushed diamonds. It usually looks white and glittery." "Should we go check it out?" asked Cressida. Just then, the baby rabbit nudged Cressida's arm and nodded toward the ground. Cressida petted his soft head one more time and placed him back in the patch of grass with his brother and sister. As Flash and Cressida walked across the meadow toward the pink race course, the rabbits nodded at Cressida and the foxes waved. Cressida smiled and waved back. A butterfly landed on her nose, and she giggled until it fluttered away. As Cressida got closer to the animals, she noticed something funny. Many were wearing bright green sneakers. "Where did all the animals get their running shoes?" Cressida asked. Flash grinned. "I gave all the creatures in the Thunder Peaks sneakers as a gift. They're very excited to be running in the Thunder Dash for the first time this year." "I bet," Cressida said. On the other side of the meadow, at the base of the mountain, Flash and Cressida wove through a thicket of pine trees and then suddenly stopped short. "Look at that!" Flash gasped, her eyes wide. There, in front of them, was the start of the path the unicorns used for the Thunder Dash, and it was covered in thick, bright pink mud. Flash lifted a silver hoof and touched the pink muck. Immediately, her leg sunk down. "Whoa!" Flash said, laughing. She put another leg into the mud. Then she lifted one of her hooves and stomped down, so pink mud splattered everywhere. Cressida giggled as tiny drops landed on her face, arms, and legs. "Come on in," Flash called out, leaping forward so all 4 hooves sunk in the mud with a giant splash. "I think this is Ernest's best magical mishap yet." Cressida giggled and stepped cautiously toward the mud. She wanted to play with Flash, but she also didn't want to ruin her unicorn sneakers. Just then, her eye caught something glittery at the base of a pine tree. She turned and saw 2 shimmering silver rain boots with a note on them that read, "Dear Cressida, it was wonderful to meet you today. Sincerely, Ernest." Cressida hurriedly took off her sneakers and slipped on the boots. They fit perfectly. Flash looked at Cressida's boots and said, "Those are even shinier than my horn and hooves." Cressida grinned, marched over to the pink mud, and stepped in. The mud came halfway up her boots, and it felt thicker and stickier than she expected. "Maybe even Sunbeam and Bloom will like running in this," Flash said, as she stomped. "We could call this year's race the Thunder Mud Dash, or the Thunder Splash," Cressida suggested, twirling and stomping as hard as she could to splatter the pink mud. Soon, they were both stomping in circles, squealing with delight as pink mud rained down on them. Then Flash, who had several large globs of pink mud on her nose, paused. She sniffed several times. "Do you smell strawberries?" Cressida inhaled. Her nose only caught the faintest whiff of strawberries. "I think so," she said slowly. "I'm sure I do," Flash said. Then with her silver tongue, she licked the pink mud from her nose. Her eyes widened, and she smiled before she lapped up more mud. "Try it," she said, and she stomped, sending a shower of pink mud right into Cressida's face. Cressida giggled and wiped off her face with her hand. Then, feeling a little unsure, she licked some of the mud off her fingers. It tasted wonderful and sweet. She laughed. The mud wasn't mud at all. It was strawberry cake batter. And not only that, but it was the best strawberry cake batter she had ever had. "Yum," Cressida said. She began to lick cake batter off her arms and hands, while Flash bowed down and ate some right off the race course. After several minutes of licking the batter, Flash said, "If I eat any more of this, I'll be too full to run in the dash." "Me too," agreed Cressida. "Plus," Flash said, "as much fun as we're having, we better get ready for the race. It won't be long before my sisters and all the creatures in the Rainbow Realm arrive, ready to run. We need to put up the starting line and the finish line, and we're in a bit of a rush." "How can I help?" asked Cressida. "Do you think you could walk up to the top of the mountain and hang the finish line?" Flash asked. "Definitely," Cressida said, looking excitedly at the long, pink path leading to the mountain's peak. She couldn't wait to climb up it. "Great, thanks, Cressida," Flash said. "I'll stay down here in case anyone gets here early. I'm sure the foxes will be happy to help me hang the starting line and the race flags." That's the end of Chapter 4. Stay tuned for Chapter 5. Chapter 5. A fox wearing green sneakers and a yellow visor appeared from behind a boulder carrying a clipboard, 2 rolled-up ribbons, and a stack of triangular flags. "Thank you, Frederick," Flash said. "Why don't you give the finish line to my friend Cressida? She's going to climb up the mountain and hang it for us. And after that, she's going to be the first human girl to run in the Thunder Dash." "Well, congratulations," Frederick said, smiling. "And thanks for your help preparing for the dash." He handed Cressida one of the ribbons. "Thank you. I'll be back soon," she said. She put the finish line in her pocket and began hiking uphill through the cake batter. As Cressida walked, the batter got deeper and deeper. Soon it reached the very top of her boots. She knew the unicorns would be able to gallop right through it, but she worried the smaller creatures in the Rainbow Realm might struggle to even walk, let alone run in it. Just then, Cressida's foot got stuck in an especially thick, deep spot. She tugged and yanked at her boot until it finally came out with a splash. "Phew," Cressida said as batter splattered her face. She decided to take a break from wading through the batter and to instead climb the mountain by scaling the gigantic boulders that covered the Thunder Peaks. She waded over to a gold boulder next to the racecourse, grabbed the top, and pulled herself up. As Cressida slid across it, she heard a yawn. And then, for a second, the boulder seemed to jump ever so slightly. Cressida paused, and the boulder stopped moving. She shrugged, leaped to the ground, ran across a log coated in coppery green moss, and began scaling a silver boulder. As soon as she had scrambled to the top, the boulder began to hop. "Yikes," said Cressida, almost sliding off. "Well, hello there," the boulder called out. "I bet you didn't think you'd be riding a boulder this morning, now did you?" Cressida laughed. "Hello," she said. After talking to the sand dunes and cacti during her last visit to the Rainbow Realm, Cressida wasn't surprised to be conversing with the boulder. "I'm Boris," the boulder bellowed, jumping even higher. "Boris the bouncing boulder. And that's Beatrice, that you just climbed over. She's less bouncy than I am today because she went to the Boulder Smolder last night." "The Boulder Smolder?" Cressida asked. "What's that?" "Well," said Boris, spinning as he jumped, "we boulders are nocturnal. That means we sleep all day and we're awake all night." "Like raccoons and bats?" Cressida said. She had learned about nocturnal animals in her science class. "Precisely," exclaimed Boris. "Well, every night we boulders hold a Boulder Smolder, where we build a huge bonfire and jump in and out of it, all night long. That makes us good and tired so we can sleep all day." "Don't you get burned?" Cressida asked. "Oh no," laughed Boris. "We boulders love fire. It's never too hot for us. I was planning on going to the Boulder Smolder last night, but I decided to stay home and play with my new marbles. Today, I have so much energy I can hardly hold still, let alone sleep." "I see that," Cressida said, tightening her grip on Boris. She felt as though she were on a trampoline. "So," Boris said, "who are you, and what brings you to the Thunder Peaks?" "I'm Cressida Jenkins. I'm friends with Flash." "Pleasure to meet you," Boris said. Just then, Cressida heard 2 voices calling up from farther up the mountain. "Help!" the voices yelled. "We're stuck! Please help us!" "Who is that?" Cressida asked, concerned. "Felicity and Felix," Boris said. "They've been shouting all morning. I'll take you to them." With that, Boris began to bounce up the mountain. Every few bounces, he collided with other boulders who yawned and mumbled, "Watch it," and "I'm trying to sleep." Finally, Boris landed next to the racecourse near the mountain's peak. In the middle of the path, poking out of the pink batter, were the heads and tails of 2 golden-orange foxes. "My name is Cressida Jenkins," Cressida said, sliding off Boris and rushing over to the edge of the racecourse. "I heard you calling for help." "Thank goodness," one of the foxes said. She smiled, and her copper eyes twinkled. "My name is Felicity. This is my brother Felix." "It's a delight to meet you, even under these strange circumstances," Felix said, twitching his gold whiskers. "We were running this morning when 2 pink clouds appeared. Then the next thing we knew, strawberry cake batter rained down on us, and then we got stuck. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen." "At least we haven't been hungry while we've been waiting for help," Felicity added, as she lapped some batter from her nose. "I'll certainly try my best to get you out," Cressida said. She reached her arms toward Felicity. "Do you think you can pull out your 2 front paws and put them in my hands?" The fox struggled for a few seconds and then, with a grunt, placed her 2 front feet in Cressida's palms. Cressida closed her hand tightly around Felicity's green sneakers, both dripping in cake batter. 1, 2, 3, Cressida counted out loud, and then she pulled as hard as she could. She could feel Felicity straining to lift her hind feet or jump, but the batter was too sticky and thick. Felicity was still stuck. "Oh no," Felix said, biting his bottom lip. "We'll be here forever." A tear slid down Felicity's cheek. "Don't panic yet," Carissa said, trying to sound reassuring. "I have one more idea." She turned to Boris. "If I lie across you and hold on to Felicity's paws, will you bounce as high as you can?" "Sure thing," Boris said. Carissa climbed onto Boris and again reached out to Felicity. The fox sniffled, took a deep breath, and put her paws back in Cressida's hands. "Okay, Boris," called out Cressida. "Bounce." "That's what I do best," Boris bellowed, and he jumped as high as he could, easily yanking Felicity out of the cake batter. "Please try to land carefully," Cressida said, holding tightly to Felicity as the boulder soared toward the sky and then hurtled downward. To Cressida's surprise, Boris landed gently on a bed of pine needles. "Phew," said Felicity, sliding off Boris and twirling around in a circle. "Thank you." She began to lick cake batter off her arms, legs, stomach, and back. "I'm glad to help," Cressida said. Then she looked at Boris. "Let's get Felix out." Cressida climbed onto Boris and grabbed Felix's front feet, which he had managed to yank from the batter. Boris rolled back down and launched himself high in the air, pulling Felix with him. "I'm afraid of heights," Felix said, sounding panicked as they flew upward. "I won't let you fall," Cressida said, squeezing Felix's green sneakers. Boris landed again in the pine needles. Felix jumped off Boris and ran to hug Felicity. "We're free," he called out. "Thank you." "I'm so glad I could help, and it's been wonderful to meet you," Cressida said. "I hate to hurry off, but I better get up to the top to hang the finish line for Flash. And then I need to tell her where we need to get all this cake batter off the race course before the Thunder Dash. It's too deep, thick, and sticky for anyone but a unicorn to run through." "We'd be glad to hang the finish line while you go talk to Flash," Felicity offered. Felix nodded. "We know exactly where it goes." "Thanks," Cressida said, and she pulled the finish line from her pocket and handed it to Felicity. The 2 foxes began making their way up the mountain, darting around boulders and climbing logs to get to the top. "I'll take you to Flash in no time," said Boris, hopping over to Cressida. "Jump aboard." That's the end of our video for today. Stay tuned and check back for the rest of our chapters in the next video. Thanks for watching.